I love your outfit. It's like so distracting. It's really great. I'm like distracting in a good way, but I'm always like, when somebody has a style, I'm like, thank you.
Tell me more about that. Are we rolling, by the way?
We are rolling, so you guys can start whenever you like.
Tell me more about that. I want to start with that for a minute.
Tell you more about what part? The style?
Yeah.
Well, I love people that have style and like a position on something, right? Because having a position on something is, there's something going on in somebody's brain and it's intentional and they're trying to express something and they are showing you a little bit about who they are. And I love that. I think one of the things with fashion and, standards as far as like you used to have to go to a country club and you'd have to be in a jacket and all that. And I understand relaxed standards because, it's more comfortable, but I think we miss a lot of opportunities to get to know people when everybody's just wearing sweatpants, or my whatever workout clothes, which is what everybody seems to do. So it's kind of nice today to get dressed up. And I thought, wow, that's right. Can I walk in high heels? Better start practicing. The pandemic is over.
Yeah.
Like, time to, so to me, it's visually appealing, right? We don't need to just see everybody and that there's anything wrong with it, but like, okay, t-shirt, hoodie, I get it. But I have ADHD. So I like something else to like land my eyes on, and my brain moves fast, so I can process it and like look at your very fabulous outfit and still do the work I'm here to do.
It's Marley Majcher, the party goddess herself, is right here. Thank you for saying that. Josh Carey with you today, by the way. Welcome to the program, The Hidden Entrepreneur. So good to see you, to be seen, to be visible, to no longer hide, to take off that mask and do exactly what you know you're capable of doing. Isn't that why we're here or attempting to be here? Which, Marley, I love that you spoke about my outfit, quite frankly, because there were many years in my life where I couldn't feel comfortable in this because you sort of need a sense of, I don't know if confidence is the word, but you need...
But why would you feel... Okay, so you would have felt more comfortable in what, first of all?
Yeah, great question. In what? In crap. In something that whatever my current mood was, anger, depression, anxiety, I'm like, oh, this matches my mood.
And then you kind of are in the background more.
In the background more, and then it becomes what? A vicious cycle.
Right, and then you're like, oh, now I don't want to go out because I'm fat and in my sweats.
Yeah, and then I justified and validated my own feelings, which I know now we can validate the opposite feeling as well, which feels a little better.
Goes into a little fake it till you make it zone, which I'm believe in tremendously.
You do believe in. I want to get right into your book. First of all, under the brand The Party Goddess, which I was talking to my colleague before the show today, and he just loved it. I mean, it like struck something. Do you find that to be the case?
I do, but it originally, when I came up with the name, I was at one of the lowest points in my life. So I was trying to strike something, but a little bit of like maybe flipping the middle finger, because I was at such a low point in my life and I was transitioning from the restaurant business to event planning. And so I needed a name for my event planning company. And I was like, talking about you where you're like, oh, I wasn't wearing these outfits and blah, blah, blah. I mean, I was in the outfit zone of like, okay, let's just wear sweats, no makeup, and feel sorry for ourselves. And then I thought, okay, this is not going to work. Not if I want to pay a mortgage in the future. So I better get it together. And then when I kept thinking of a name that would resonate with people, I was like, well, okay, at least, because in marketing you go, okay, it should be obvious what you do. It should be, you go through all these things, and that's my background. And so then I was like, whatever, why not call myself the Party Goddess? And I remember going the first industry event that I went to where I was introduced as that by my very gracious friend who knew I was having a very tough time. And was like, yes, and this is Marley from the Party Goddess, like as if the Party Goddess was like centuries old, like as if I was Palmolive or something. And was just totally like, here she is. And I remember the person literally looked at me like in a very LA or New York way, just like the Party Goddess. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, as I say, I'm not in a good spot now, but I was thinking to myself, I will freaking flipping own you. And that like story, and that it is seared in my brain, and it really motivated me to be like, who are you? Like Little Miss Jane Doe Events, like you're not so fabulous either. So why can't I be fabulous? But I just took that emotion. I was like, oh no, I am not going to be at the bottom of the barrel of this industry.
So you didn't please everybody out of the gate, but here's the thing. You got feedback that supported the, hey, I'm not pleasing everybody, and me in years past would have just cowered.
Well, me in years past, because I think that depends also on how you grow up. So I grew up in a really conservative, I'm not necessarily saying politically, but I'm saying like, you do this and you do that and you get an education and you get married and there are kind of steps to happiness. And I very much followed that prescription until I realized, okay, well, I've followed it, I think, but it's not really working. Am I the only one that feels like it's not working? Like, do other people in the world think it's not working? Because like everybody around me seemed to have the white picket fence and it all seemed to just look perfect. And inside I seemed to be the only one who was like, oh my gosh, I'm still struggling with those 10 pounds while these girls are like 8 months pregnant and weigh half of what I weigh, Yeah. And so I think when you sometimes when you do hit rock bottom, you get to the point where you're like, whatever. I mean, I don't even care anymore. So I'm going to do what I want to do because the other way didn't work.
So much of my life, I felt like everybody else has it figured out.
Oh, yeah.
I'm the only one who doesn't.
Right.
But what was strange was that I felt like, Josh, you think you're talented. Like you feel like you can achieve. So what is happening?
Right.
If the universe is responding differently, who's right and who maybe?
Right. It's weird.
Yeah.
But you have to, the thing I think, some of those things I think are just like games that the universe plays with you to see if you really want it, to see if it can throw all this tumult at you and if you can just stay the course. Like I sometimes joke that I felt so many times like I was holding onto a palm tree like in a hurricane, right? And I'm just like, okay, just you can hold on just a little longer, like as if it's a test. And I think those are the people that do make it, are the ones that are just not going to give up no matter what and no matter how hard it is, because now being on this side, I know it's hard for everybody. They might say it's not, but they're lying.
Yeah.
I mean, it is hard. There's no, well, I should say, if they don't think it's hard, then they're either lying or, in my opinion, they're not particularly successful. I mean, so I'm sure there are plenty of just lazy people who are like, oh, okay, I'm good.
We're going to get to your book in a minute, which has, my jaw dropped when I read the title of your book because I'm like, hey, my father spent so many conversations with me saying the same thing as creatives.
Right.
Drop it in. What is the title of this book?
It's called, But Are You Making Any Money? And if you knew how many times I heard that question from my father, but are you making any money? I was like, and I would always have an answer. And the answer was never yes or no. The answer was always started with well, comma.
Yeah.
You don't understand.
Correct.
You know what? My business is different than yours.
It's a process.
It's a process. It takes a while. Nobody's profitable the first year / 3 years / what. I mean, just fill in the blank, right? I mean, it might as well have been like a Mad Libs, like just fill in literally whatever excuse. And what I realized is it's just a question that we all have to ask ourselves if we want to be in business. If it's a hobby, that's a totally different story. But if you really want to be in business, you have to be asking yourself that, not just in the beginning, but regularly. And then what happens is you become desensitized to it. Like it used to just enrage me, right?
Oh, yes.
I mean,
I forgot about that. Because you take it personally.
Why are you take it personally?
Yeah.
Because you're like somebody's challenging you and
like, you don't know.
You don't know. Right. You don't understand. And there's all these components I need to tell you about.
But they do know.
But they do know.
They do know.
And they know in business, it is a simple yes or no answer. Now, it could be yes. And that answer could be you're making 10 cents. And that might have some qualifications in your brain like, yes, but I want to be doing better, or no, but I know why. And I'm actually doing something about it with like a plan as opposed. But what I find is that when you can't answer the question, you don't know why. And that's the scary part, is when you're not sure what exactly is going wrong. And that's what the book fixes for people, is it just in a very simple fashion just uncovers look, it's not rocket science. Just do this and this and this, and you're going to figure out where your issue is. Now, if you want to do something about it, that's a different story. But figuring it out is not always as hard as people think.
Reading your list of credits, your successful campaigns and relationship literally reads like a who's who of Hollywood. How in the world did that happen?
Well, believe it or not, it happened as a result of that first conversation, that first industry event where somebody was like, who? And I knew from a marketing perspective, well, I knew that LA and New York are two very, very competitive markets. And then, you have London, now we have a lot of competitive markets. But I knew at the time LA and New York were very, very competitive. And I also knew, I'd read some statistic that there was, it's probably way off by now, but it was something like there are 486,000 event planners in the English speaking world. And I was like, even if that was half right or half, like, how in the heaven's name am I going to compete against that, right? That's always what I would ask myself. How am I going to stand apart? Because there's always going to be somebody with more money that can outspend me in terms of doing a Super Bowl ad, right? There's always going to be something. But for me, what I just started looking at is, what can I make my differential advantage? And I was fascinated by the whole celebrity piece. Now, not maybe in the way you might think. Like, some people are fascinated by the celebrities in terms of they want to like take the photo with the celebrities, or they want to be the celebrities. Or I was fascinated with the fact that I grew up with some very, very wealthy friends, billionaires, one of them at least, and who could run circles around the money that these celebrities had. But what I was always fascinated by was, it'd be spring break in high school, and you're reading the magazines, and they are paying attention to what the celebrity is wearing and what face cream they use and where they're eating dinner and where they're, and then we would all like be like, oh, we want to go there, we want to eat that, we want to, and I would just in my brain be like, you guys are doing why do you care? But for whatever reason, however we're hardwired, we care what somebody at supposedly an elevated position thinks. And so for a long time, I thought, well, I can get some celebrities. Not that I had a clue how, but I thought, okay. But then I just decided I got my career to a certain point. I was making money. Like, those boxes were checked. Thank you. But I thought, if I want to make a mark, and what am I doing if I'm not trying to make a mark? I mean, that's just my competitive personality. And then I thought, I've got to come up with something. So I figured it was celebrities. So I remember, I'm very big on, you write your goals down, and they're very specific. And I have done this for 30 or more years. So I had written down that I wanted celebrity clients, how many A-list celebrity clients I wanted, how many I wanted a year, how many magazine articles I wanted a year. I mean, I was very, 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 I was like that geeky girl, like with the vision boards. But I wrote that down, and then the first thing is like, okay, well, great, but how do you get that?
Right.
Like, where do you? And so I just would talk to my other friends about it, because that's part of goal setting. And so then one of them said, hey, listen, my friend is a publicist, and I think she deals with some celebrity stuff. Like, at least she can kind of get you in the right direction, because I had no direction. So I talked to her, and she said, yeah, I can help you. And then she kind of told me how she's worked with people in the past and how they've done it. And one of the things that people don't realize is that celebrities love free stuff. I think now we know more because of the gifting suites, they love it, but I think they don't realize how much they love it and how much it is expected. It is just the currency of the game. And I was like, okay. And I remember having this big mental argument with myself, because I was like, I shouldn't need to be going after the celebrities. Like, they should be coming after me. My work is that good and all that stuff. And I just thought, okay, fine, keep doing that. It's not working. I mean, it is working to a certain extent. And then when I came up with this plan with my friend to like really reach out to celebrities and be like, now remember, I did not have celebrities. I wasn't in People magazine. I mean, I didn't have any of that. So I was like, okay. So she would help me contact them, and we would give them a gift certificate and be like, hey, and I thought, well, these people can, like, why are they even going to care about a gift certificate? Like, who cares? But it just goes to people. What isn't top 10 words in the English language that people love, is one of them is free. Well, they are in the same category. And so I remember one day being at my office, and I think I was like sitting on the floor, like working on some just hot mess of a project, not very glamorous. And I remember my assistant being like, Jamie Spears is on the phone. And I was like,
of the famous Spears family.
And so by the way, I'm a big Jamie Spears fan.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And she was like, what? I was like, come on. Oh my God. It's got to obviously be like one of my friends punking me.
So this was the first.
It was way up there.
Yeah.
It was, she was way up there. And I remember just being like, okay, well, what do I, and I was like, this is Marley, like as if it's like, oh, hi, and you are, and talk about the fake it till you make it. I was like, okay, I am now. So they were like, okay, well, so what are the, started talking about this, and they wanted to do a party for the boys, or Brittany's boys, et cetera, got all the details like I did. Then I kind of went into my own zone. Like I knew how to plan a party. So I went into my own zone, and I remember being like, okay, thank you. And, yes, and we'll get back to you with the terms and, all these things. And I just was like hung up, and I was like, oh my God, and now what? Now, like, okay, now what do I do? And how do you behave? And what do I ask them to sign a confidentiality agreement? Do I send it to my lawyer if I get one from them? I mean, like, what do you do? You're at the guard gate. Like,
how did they?
Well, it's interesting because for us, we started down the path and, we got all the details and stuff. And then by the time it got to the point where it was like, okay, it looked like we were pitching them ideas that they liked. And it was gonna, we're all on the same page kind of thing. And then, and I would speak with her manager as well. And then it got to the point where, okay, we need to do a meeting, and then we had to do a site check. And that's when, we'll send over the confidentiality agreements, and that's when you're just like losing your mind because you realize, am I signing my life away? What am I agreeing to? Because you're trying to read it, but you also want to play it cool, right? You don't want to see it sit like, oh, hi, I don't think I'm going to sign that because then you know what's going to happen. They're going to be like, fine, next. And find the next party planner who's happy to sign it. So I just was like, okay. I mean, I read it. I signed it. But then I said to my team, don't you guys say one word about this. Like, I have just signed that we're not talking about it. We're not, everybody was so paranoid but excited at the same time. And it was just a great moment. But you realize that business, like parties, they're all the same. Clients are nervous about whatever kind of party they're going to throw, whether it's for their kids. Are, the kids and all the kids going to show up? Or is there going to be a problem at the valet? Are they going to like the food? Is it going to be too hot out? Is it going to be, but then you add a celebrity component to it. And then you've got, will the helicopters drown out the music, because you've got all these paparazzi concerns.
So this idea of being prior to the party goddess, an identity, a business, mixed in with the conversation your father, like mine, has had many times.
Many _
I can personally, looking back on my reasons, there was a lot of unworthiness. I was keeping busy, as I know is the subtitle of the book too, right? I know that for me, it was just like we were going back to the beginning of the show. I didn't wear certain things because I just didn't have the self-worth, self-confidence, low self-esteem, which is exactly why I wasn't allowing myself to make money. So with that, I know you speak a lot about shame.
I mean,
could we?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, and it's so funny because people often have said to me like, why are you so open about that? Why are you so, and I've said, because if I didn't say it, somebody else would, right? So somebody else would be like, that girl wasn't always all that. That girl used to do, whatever train wreck activity I was doing.
We all have our past.
Right. We all have our past. And so I just figured, hey, listen, it seems like there are a few other people out there like me. So if I can just come out with the story and give them all the gory yet accurate details, perhaps they can see themselves in it and also turn it around, right? Because I think anyway, you have shame when you feel that you are somehow not up to par to other people. But the big key to that is actually knowing that you're not up to par, which we don't know, right? We just think based on Instagram, or we think based on, so if you really drill down with somebody about that and you're like, okay, they're like, well, they're doing this and they're doing that. Well, but you don't know how maybe they paid to get that placement. Maybe there's so many things you don't know. And so first of all, you can't measure yourself to anybody else, because if you're going to, you got to take the sum of all of it, right? Like how good a person are they, et cetera, et cetera. And you don't. You never do. You're only like just in this little category.
Yes.
And it's like, meanwhile, they're like
everything else. That's not good. Right.
Like
We get it.
Huge bucket.
Yeah.
So for me, I had made so many mistakes in business, and I had publicly made so many mistakes in business. And I already was kind of a mouthy girl who had a lot of confidence in myself. Which I imagine that.
You did?
I did.
Okay.
But when you have a lot of confidence and you're and then you accomplish a few things, you eating a dose of humble pie, because you start thinking you're the master of the universe, right? You're like, okay, I'm 22. My goal is to do $1 million in sales. I did. What's next for me? And so it was very much like I was just knocking it out of the park. But my dirty little secret was that there were certain parts I was knocking out of the park, but there were other parts that I very much was not knocking out of the park. Well, for example, I hit $1 million in sales. That was one of my written goals. Okay, I wanted to do that. My first year, I was 22 in the restaurant business. Boom, boom, boom. Great. But what you don't realize is if you do $1 million in sales, but you spend 1.1, you haven't done yourself any favors. Do 500,000 in sales. Don't hit the goal on the piece of paper, right? Or have better goals, which of course I learned later. Do 500,000 and actually spend 450. You're way up. But so there were so many things that I just felt like I did so wrong. But then, then there are people that are justifiably so. I was a brat about it. So there were people that were very happy to be like, haha.
And you kept these as a secret, you said. That
absolutely, because what are you supposed to say? You're supposed to be like, really, I feel like crap about myself, and I don't think I'm that great a party planner. In fact, I think there's those girls over there who are crushing it. You should call them. I mean, well, you can't do that if you have a mortgage to pay and kids that you want to put through college, right? You have to be like, you have got this. You can do this. Okay, maybe you're going to have to work like night and day for a while, but you can turn this around if you want to. And I think the biggest piece of advice that I have for people is that there is always a way out, whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever. I believe in both, but there is always a way out if you just put your head down and work at it and just do not give up. The whole Winston Churchill piece. And what I knew was that I was very confident in my excuses of why I wasn't making any money, and that in my opinion, they were pretty justified. But then I just thought, I'm better than this. And I don't know why I'm not making any money, but I do know that I can figure it out somehow. And I'm going to figure it out. And then it's not fun. And you start digging in and you don't know where you're going, and the learning curve is huge, and it's like ripping a Band-Aid off. And then I knew I was going to have to change some of my business practices, which I did. But the scariest part was the moment before I decided to make the change, right? Because that's the part where you feel like you have to open the closet and see what's in it. That's the part where you're like, I don't want to look at my financials, like, because you're going to see all your mistakes. But that's great, because when you see your mistakes, you don't repeat them.
So what was this change that you made?
The change was a dinner with my parents, where I was going on about, and then we're doing this and the opening of the Holy Bull, or God only knows what I was, pontificating about.
So on paper, it was brilliant.
On paper, it was not only on my paper, on the magazine papers, on every paper, it was brilliant.
So what was the problem?
Right, the problem was I was not making any money. I was now back in the same spot I had been in the restaurant business. So I thought, okay, if I don't have 100 employees, if I don't have all this overhead, surely I can create profit and loss statements where I'm going to know my numbers and I'm going to know how many jobs I need to do a year. But what happens is life happens, right? And so then you have 5 more clients calling you for bids, and then you're working on the bids, and then you're executing a job, and you come home from the job on Saturday night, and you don't take the time to tally up all your receipts of what the job actually cost you to produce. And you just keep writing another proposal based on the numbers of the last proposal, right? That's why the subtitle of the book is Stop Being Busy, Start Creating Cash. Because it's like, you have to just stop and say, you can't do any more proposals right now.
So you were at dinner.
Yeah. My dad says, and I'm going, oh, this is so great. And my dad is like, stop. My dad had it by this point.
And the event was the Hollywood Bowl?
I was talking about the Hollywood Bowl and a celebrity thing. And, he wouldn't know a celebrity out of one, nor would he care.
Right. So,
and he just was like, but are you making any money? And I just remember that moment. Like, I remember the moment when I was, that event planning conference where, like, the crocodile tears are at the rim of your eyeballs and you feel them sitting there and you are like, I'm not even going to move my face because if one starts to go over, I will never stop crying. And I am in a very public place. And I just remember, like, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. You've got this, you've got this, you've got this. But I'm telling you, at that moment, I thought to myself, I am done with this story. I am done not being able to answer this question. It can't be that hard. He would have been happy if I said, yes, I am. I'm making $5 because he would have at least known I knew how much. But it's this dizziness that kills us. That's the shame.
I'm sure he would have been just as happy if you said, I'm not.
Well, or if I said, you know what? I lost $10,000 last year. Because I undercharged a client. So admission. I changed my proposals this year and now we're on track.
Progress.
Imagine.
Admission or progress.
Right. Admission or progress or just some kind of self-realization that you're working on the problem, that it's not just acceptable to be in business without knowing your numbers because it really isn't.
Or be in life without knowing your quote unquote numbers.
It's the same thing, right?
Yeah, self-awareness, admission, being able to admit.
But that comes from, you get clocked like I have a few times with the dose of humble pie and you start getting, but it does get a lot easier. Then you just start going, oh yeah, that was a doozy.
Yeah, but some people go to their grave without admitting a damn thing.
Right. And then, and they have the results to show for it. In my opinion, I would much rather say, you know what? I blew it, or I don't understand, because when I have said that, even to people that I'm embarrassed about, like in the old days to my accountants, I'd be like, what is depreciation again? Like, I don't understand, how does that affect what I do? Like, I'm thinking, am I depreciating a martini? What am I depreciating? Right. And then, and I remember, the old curmudgeon accountant was like, like, how dumb can this girl be? But I finally just thought, I don't give two hoots what this clown says. I'm just going to keep asking these questions until I get an answer that I understand. The other interesting thing that I figured out was that a lot of times when people won't answer your questions is because they don't know the answer. So I used to say to other event planners, like, oh, so how do you guys charge? Like, do you do a markup? I was not trying to pry. I was genuinely like trying to figure out my own pricing. Like, what's kind of the way you do it? I knew how we did it in the restaurant business. I knew how we did it for events in a banquet space. And they'd be like, oh, and then I realized, a billion years later after the book came out, that they don't know how to answer my question because they don't have a set formula for pricing, right? They say, I do a wedding for X amount of money, but it doesn't increase, the amount doesn't increase or decrease based on the scope, right? It's just like, a wedding, I charge this amount. So they don't know how much they're really making at the end of the day per hour. They don't have if a product costs me this, I mark it up this much, right? And then I charge X amount for my time. But if they even know how much they charge for their time, let's say they happen to charge hourly, which most don't. But let's say they just charge hourly instead of a flat fee. They don't take into consideration how much drive time, how much texting time they're doing with the client about the proposal. All that gets lost. So then they think, I'm making $150 an hour. No, you're not. I have this whole exercise where I go through and it becomes so obvious that, oh no, not only are you not making $150, like when I did it for myself, I call it my McDonald's moment, I was making less than $5 an hour. And I realized I would be better off at McDonald's. Like, I would have a 401k and I would not have to go to McDonald's because I was so stressed out after my events. And this is ridiculous. Like, because a lot of times people should just get jobs. I hate to say that. If you don't want to know your numbers, you should maybe just get a job because you're going to make more money at the end of the day.
It seems like the overriding theme here is you have to be honest with yourself, with what you're doing, with what you're knowing, with what you're feeling. Honesty.
you have to be honest with, and you have to be honest with your goals. You can also say, which a lot of coaching clients I've worked with, they'll be like, I just get them to say, I don't want to work that hard. That is perfectly acceptable.
No judgment.
It's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
Just because I want to work 24 hours a day and have no life has no impact whatsoever on anybody else. But that just goes to knowing yourself, And so I can say, listen, in order for you to make this dollar amount that you're saying you want, you're either going to have to turn tricks on Hollywood Boulevard, or you are going to have to do X amount of events. And at currently how you're charging, you're going to have to charge, $2,000 an hour or whatever it would be. Or you're going to have to do, tons of them. You're going to have to do 3 times the amount you're currently doing. It is okay to say, I don't want to work that hard. It's also okay to say, I don't know how I would get my rate to $2,000 or an hour or whatever. The place that I try to get people out of is that place that is full of shame, which is the not knowing. It's you don't have to make $1 billion. You don't have to want to make $1 billion. But what I think that where the confidence and the self-worth comes in is when it's a conscious decision, right? Like, I'm coming to this interview. You're not paying me. I don't want to be paid. I'm thrilled to come to the interview, right? I'm getting it. It satisfies me on a million different things, right? But I'm very upfront about that in my head. I'm not saying I'm going to give X amount of time to go over there and do this. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You're making a trade-off. And so you have to have those real conversations with yourself and then say, okay, if I'm doing this one, which I'm really excited to do, I probably can't do 4 other ones this week because guess what? I do have to pay my mortgage. So I'm going to have to, if I want to go on this fabulous international vacation in 2 months, well, then my days are going to be longer and I'm going to not have as many weekends. But it's a choice. The shame and self-worth, where you have issues is when you don't know. You just feel busy. So you don't say, I'm not going to do 5 interviews because those don't have an immediate payoff. They have a long-term payoff, right? But I kind of call it like, I have this analogy in the book about, it's like radishes, I forget what it's like, radishes, cucumbers, and something else, which is basically like you plant certain seeds and certain seeds mature very quickly and you can harvest them, right? So we all need some of those. We need some of those. That's the equivalent of do a Google ad, put it out for an event. You get the event. It's a quick and dirty event. You might not make 2 tons of money, but the money's coming in fast, right? And then you have other things that you do, marketing or, a podcast or whatever. And it's going to take a long time and the dividends are going to be way down there. That's an avocado tree, right? It's going to take 7 years for that thing to bear fruit. So you don't plant all avocado trees if you don't have any money coming in, right? You kind of have this mix. And so, but it's all just about being like, okay, I'm going to make this trade for this trade, this trade for this trade. I'm going to do this nonprofit event, but then I'm going to have to do this event to offset all the time I'm doing, for my kid's school or something like that. But the confidence is in knowing and you choosing as opposed to feeling like your email and you're just getting, lost in a fire hose.
You catch all that? But are you making money? Catch it on Amazon, anywhere you buy books. It's Marley Majcher, the party goddess. Thank you so much for coming in and sitting down with us today.
Thank you. I loved it, and I love your outfit, and I am very happily distracted still, start to finish.